Good morning. This is Sally Morgan, physical therapist, craniosacral therapist, and Tellington T-Touch practitioner for animals and people. This is Tristan. He's the Corgi, and we're here for an episode of Conversations with a Corgi. I think it's been 2 or 3 weeks since I've done one. I'm just busy, and frankly, these are really hard to do and not that easy to get that to happen right now. So I've been wanting to talk about farm dog, and Tristan went to his farm dog competition over the weekend, and I posted that he had completed his farm dog certification. Yes, he was born on a farm, and after 10 years, someone said he's an official farm dog. He's been a good farm dog over his whole life. And a couple of people said, congrats, but what the heck is that? I would like to do farm dog. So I'm going to talk about that today. Farm dog is a title that you can get from the American Kennel Club. So you go to the AKC website and you look up farm dog on their search. And I have to say their website's one of the best ones I've been to on any kind of professional organization. It takes you right to what you need. So you can look up the test elements of farm dog. And these farm dog competitions are often judged by people that do rally judging or trick judging or canine good citizen judging, especially if the person has a little bit of land at their property and can do a farm dog test. This one I went to was sponsored by the Mayflower Corgi Club, which is a New England-wide Corgi club, but all kinds of breeds were dogs were there. We had a St. Bernard and some Pyrenees and a Chihuahua and lots of Corgis, and I think there was a Portuguese water dog, an Anatolian Shepherd, which I have not seen except for a dog I worked on who we just thought could be an Anatolian Shepherd. What a gorgeous big dog they are. So any dog can do this. You have to have an AKC number. So if your dog is not a purebred, you can still get that through the Pet Pals program that they have. So once you get your number, you can look for a farm dog certification test day in your area. So it's very much like the Canine Good Citizen test. And if you're not familiar with that, that's just like some basic dog manners that are tested. You know, can he walk in a crowd with people? Can he walk around friendly dogs? Can he sit and be greeted without jumping all over somebody? Can he walk quietly by your side? Can he go over some different kinds of gates and things like that on the ground? You know, just to, is he startled by loud noises? Just to know that your dog is going to be a good guy. And some hotels I know of have even considered, and have in fact in New York City, made it a requirement for your dog to stay there that he be a canine good citizen. Because part of that is your awareness of what a good dog is. I mean, you may think your dog is wonderful, but if he's jumping all over people and pulling at the end of his leash and not sitting quietly while you're checking in at the hotel, he's disrupting other guests, and that's not very good. So the farm dog is similar. It's meant to be a step up into the herding world, and there's tons of herding competitions, every kind of level, every kind of critter that you can herd. And this is a basic get started in herding. Now Tristan already has his herding title, and a lot of the people that do the most basic herding instinct title, that's what he has, test also will do the farm dog test. And some of the barn dog, which is more about rat and scent work, people also test for farm dog because it's very similar. So I'll just talk today about what these elements are. The first thing the dog has to do is greet the judge and do that quietly. So what that means is, you know, in COVID times, the judge might be 6 or 7 feet away, but you don't want your dog running to the edge of his leash. You don't want him growling at the judge. You don't want him jumping at the judge. You know, if your dog can just sit there while you say, hi, judge, and shake their hand and, you know, have a nice day. Thanks for being here, you know, whatever. That's what they want to see. You know, you won't get too many points if your dog's running in circles around the judge or tangling her up either, although some judges are more forgiving than others. The next thing the dogs have to do is go in a walking pattern around farm environment and a passive stranger. So that, for us, was a lady sitting under an umbrella in a lawn chair. And honestly, I don't think the dogs were very aware of her. They had to also go under like a tarp set up with hay bales on both sides, similar to many farm environments. So they just walk by the passive stranger. And then the walking pattern that we did was around, you know, like a rototiller, a wheelbarrow, and some other piece of equipment. And you just weave a figure eight. You see how this is close to rally, which is similar. You just weave a figure eight in a circle around the wheelbarrow, and that's the end of that element. And that's to make sure several things. First of all, your dog can't run over and pee on anything at a farm. That's a big problem. Peeing on hay is a big problem. Anybody with horses is aware of the problem that is. Most people with dogs are not aware at all of the problem of peeing on the hay. So you want your dog to walk on a loose leash and go around, you know, all these pieces of equipment. It could be a tractor, it could be some kind of a little cart, it could be even like a pile of rakes and shovels on the ground, a hose, any kind of farm equipment, or equipment you could find on a farm, water buckets, you know, if you're cleaning the stalls, anything like that. Another thing a dog has to do in farm dog is jump on a straw bale or a hay bale. Now, this is a part of what you want your dog to do so that he can get out of the way. So that, for instance, if you're dragging the hose down the aisle and you don't want to trip him and get him tangled, and, you know, maybe it's really tangled up, you want him to sit on that hay bale and stay there. So the test is 10 seconds. But, you know, honestly, when I've been in a barn with a dog and I put them on a hay bale, they got to stay there a while because there's a reason I put them up there. You know, maybe there's a horse in the aisle the vet's working with and he's really out of control. And I have these guys, short dogs. I want to get him on the hay bale out of the way so that he's safe. Oh, we're back. We just went down for a second. If you're out in Colorado, you might actually get to walk by steers, cattle, horses, things like that. We had ducks. It can be any kind of livestock: turkeys, chickens, ducks, pigs, sheep, cows, lambs, horses, miniature horses, anything. And there's a walk by where you're standing quite a ways away from them. And, you know, what they're looking for is your dog not to run to end of his leash and bark at the ducks. You want them to go, oh, there's ducks there, huh? And walk by. So then they have to walk through unusual surfaces. This is really key because this is part of what we do in T-Touch. It's one of the top 2 things in T-Touch groundwork that we talk about as being critical, and that is to walk over unusual surfaces. So that would include a tarp, which is often on the ground in a barn. That would include, sometimes they're fixing a gate or something and there's like a piece of plywood that has slats on it on the ground. That would be a gate or a stall door. Just some logs laying on the ground they'd have to walk through. I've seen them use a piece of chain link fence or the chain link off of a harrow, and they have to walk over that, which is a little sketchy. You know, a bigger dog's paw could get stuck in chain link. So if you're running one of these competitions or helping someone, think about that. I've seen people just use a piece of carpet. A stall mat is a good thing. A wet stall mat, because now it's wet and black and heavy, hard to move. So I think they usually have 2 or 3 surfaces that you have to walk over. Any dog that's been through a T-Touch confidence course, no problem for the most part. And if you don't have time to practice, this is the one most important thing you could do, is walk over the surfaces, because it really helps your dog's confidence, his balance, his self-containment. So I've said to several people competing, just throw a coat on the floor, put a tarp out, get a bunch of doormats and stack them next to each other and have the dog walk over that stuff. And, you know, dogs that are afraid of surfaces are still going to be afraid of like a sheet muffled up on the ground. So that gives you an opportunity to work with your dog and prepare him for this. And, you know, most of the dogs were somewhat cautious, but went over these things. And they're all usually older dogs. This is something you do, you know, when your dog's like 1 at least. So supervised separation, that's another thing you do in Canine Good Citizen. So you put the dog in a crate. Sometimes they have a friendly stranger hold the dog in Canine Good Citizen. For this one, we put him in a crate, and then you go behind a screen and you have to be there for 2 minutes, and your dog can't, you know, go berserk trying to get out of the crate or whatever. Because if you need to go deal with, quote, stock, you need to be able to put your dog in a stall, in the tack room, in the bathroom, in the washroom, so that you can go do that. And so that's what the separation is about. They have to pass through a gate. Now, our directions were for us to go through the gate and then bring the dog through. Now, I always put my dog through first because he's little, and if the wind is blowing and I lose a gate, which has happened, believe me, way too many times with a horse even, I want my dog where I'm going to be so that I'm safe with him. And so usually I put the dog through and then I go. They like the dog to wait, and then you go, and then you ask the dog to come. That was very hard for Tristan because that's exactly backwards to what he knows. And like an Arabian horse, these little corgis and border collies know that once you learn it, that's the way it's supposed to be. There's another section where the handler has to feed livestock. We had tiny Dixie cups of duck food. Dog got tied to a fence. We walked down, threw the food at the ducks, and then walked back. And that's important because, you know, if your dog is not going to be good with livestock, he's going to be jumping at his leash, trying to follow you, and the ducks are going to, you know, see him barking, and they're going to quack and run around, or sheep, they could, you know, or pigs, and scare the dog. So he's got to wait while you do things at the farm. They have to be able to not react to a friendly dog. It says in the directions that the dog should walk about 10 feet on the side with you between the dog and yours, and then on the other side next to your dog. But you know, they have to set it up how they can. So sometimes the friendly dog is just walking nearby, and it has to be a non-reactive dog, not one like mine that I can make be non-reactive, because a dog that's slightly reactive will react to one that's being managed. So you really need a truly friendly dog to do that with other dogs, friendly dog with other dogs. The noise distraction was quite a fun one. We got down to the side and they started a chainsaw and rang a cowbell, and then the chainsaw died, so they were using a leaf blower. I think the battery on that gave out, so then they were hammering a piece of metal and ringing the cowbell, and the second judge actually insisted that it be louder, but you're hearing it every 5 minutes all day long, so most dogs did not have much of a reaction. And then number 11 is that your dog has to approach the livestock. And so that means you have to come up, you know, a foot from where the horses, cows, sheep, pigs, chickens, ducks for us were. Let the dog look, and they liked us to have them look on a loose leash and then ask the dog to come along with you. And nearly every dog had no problem with that. A few dogs that had never seen a duck, maybe the younger dogs, more playful dogs, were like, "Ooh, duckies," and they were kind of bounding towards the ducks, and you might have had to ask them a little more strongly to come with you. But you know, even that, they're curious. They're not trying to eat the livestock. And then the last thing is a physical assessment. So they had us put the dog on another little bench, and then you check, you know, they want to just make sure you can handle the dog everywhere. So we had to look at their feet, look in their mouth, look in their ears. Honestly, with a dog like this, I'm going to be looking for ticks around his armpits, his ears, and then burdocks in his fuzz buns. And, you know, some of the judges want you to really handle the dog a lot more than that. But, you know, it's supposed to show that your dog is patient and that, you know, you are able to keep him clean and manage him in a farm environment. And so it's a pass-fail test. That's pretty much all you have to do. It's a pass-fail test. It's a fun thing to print out and just make it in your backyard and do it with your dog for fun. You don't have to have actual livestock. I mean, a lot of dogs, if you just put a bunch of their toys in a little caged-in area, they may respond the same way they would to a cage full of chickens. So, and it just depends on your area. I mean, a lot of people I know have a horse farm, and they would let me come over and practice a couple of these things with a pasture of horses walking my dog by. No problem. And I know plenty of people with chickens. I could do the same thing. Chicken people are a little more nervous about dogs. They are afraid their chickens are going to get scared. But, you know, the whole point is to not scare the chickens. So that's what you do for farm dog assessment. And it's a super fun thing to do. You have to do it twice on 2 different show events. So what our club did, and a lot of clubs do things this way with these kind of titles, they run 2 events on the same day. So you have one in the morning for 30 dogs, a lunch break, and then another run in the afternoon for another 30 dogs. So that will put your day like 9 to 4. And there are limits. Judges aren't allowed to do more than, I don't know, 40 or something at a time. So, and if you have to have 2 different judges. So you just call your 2 judges in, set up the course, change it a little bit for the second round, and the dogs stay for the day. I mean, this is something you can easily do during COVID because people can park far apart, and if you're organized and have enough help, I mean, it does take a lot of people to do this. You can have people say, number 123 is going in the ring, so that people in the parking lot can say, oh, I better get out of my lawn chair and get my number 125 heading down to the ring. So it's super fun, and I think most people there had a really fun time with their dogs doing these activities. I think most of them passed at least once, if not twice. And you know, the more experienced dogs that show a lot, I mean, you know, the Corgi Club, there's conformation dogs there. This is a fun thing for them to do that's just different and fun. So look up Farm Dog on the AKC website and check it out. And if you haven't ever done the Canine Good Citizen, definitely get on top of that too. And that, again, you can practice in your house. It's a really, really good thing for your dog to be a Canine Good Citizen. To me, it's the start of all other training. Like, I had a friend who got a dog, first dog they ever had, and wanted the dog to be a therapy dog and come to work with them. And when the dog was under a year old, they convinced the trainer, who was not all for this, to test the dog for the Canine Good Citizen. The dog failed in like 5 areas because she was too young and too excitable, and the person got all discouraged and decided the dog wouldn't be good at work. And one of the issues with the dog is that she's super protective of the person and also super barky, and was being trained by the 4 family members, so that's not really fair to the dog. But for me, I mean, that's always the first thing I do with my puppies is get their Canine Good Citizen. And many dog trainers at your local dog schools will have tests for Canine Good Citizens and run one for you. A lot of shelters even will do it as a benefit, sometimes free, for people who have adopted dogs from there, because they want their dogs to be Canine Good Citizens. I mean, it's a sign that your dog is well-mannered, and that's what we want. We want dogs to be good so that more people will see how wonderful they are, and there'll be more homes for more dogs. So check out the Farm Dogs and check out the Canine Good Citizen on the AKC website. All right, Tristan, he says, I've got all those things. We'll talk more about my other stuff another time. So thanks for joining us today. We might be back Thursday or Friday this week. I have some appointments later on this week, so we'll see how that all pans out. But thanks for joining us today. Everybody have a good day, and congrats to my little farm dog. Thanks for joining us.